Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss? The third and final season of Star Trek Picard promises to bring together the bridge crew of the Next Generation TV series for the first time since the film Nemesis over 20 years ago. We will also be catching up with 20 years of history that these characters have gone through since we last saw them, and one character that looks to have made some major changes in his life is Worf. In the trailer for the upcoming final season of Picard, Worf can be heard telling Riker that he now prefers pacifism to combat.
You should know that I now prefer pacifism to combat.
This, along with his new look, show that this character has been through a lot since he last served on the USS Enterprise D. But fans of Deep Space Nine will remember that Worf was not even a member of Starfleet when his time on that show ended, and that he had in fact chosen to become an ambassador of the Klingon Empire. Since these events happened in universe before the events of Nemesis, this has caused some confusion as to why Worf was serving in Starfleet in that movie after he had resigned his commission on Deep Space Nine. Thanks to a new comic from IDW Publishing, we now know how and why Worf rejoined Starfleet, as well as what mission he was on during that time, which may give us a hint as to his new appearance and demeanor on Star Trek Picard. But before I get into that, I want to thank you for clicking on this video and ask that you please hit that like and that subscribe button if you have not yet. Thank you so much for your support, and it really does help my channel grow. This story started last month with the first comic book in the series, which details many events, including how and why Benjamin Sisko returns from the Bajoran wormhole after he had left Deep Space Nine, and the crew that he is able to assemble to take on this special mission. If you do follow this channel, you already know that last month I put out a video on the first comic book in this series, and if you have not watched that yet, I suggest you either pause this video now and go watch it first, or watch it right afterwards. I will leave a link to that video in the description of this one, as well as in the corner of this video right now. But basically, Sisko believes that he was brought back to DS9 to take on a mission for the Prophets that he does not completely understand yet. He just knows that he needs to get a ship and a crew to an area of space known as the Hephaestus Nebula, with the help of a still Captain Picard, as these events occur about 3 years after the end of Deep Space Nine, before Jean-Luc was promoted to Admiral. The two convinced Starfleet to allow Sisko to use an experimental NX-class vessel named the Theseus. It just so happens that Montgomery Scott is the lead engineer and steward of the vessel and joins Captain Sisko and his crew. Montgomery Scott is still alive in this time period thanks to him being held in a transporter bank for decades waiting for rescue, which occurred in the Next Generation episode Relics. Other members of Captain Sisko's crew include Tom Paris, the former pilot of the USS Voyager, as well as Commander Data as the ship's first officer, and Beverly Crusher, both veterans of the Next Generation crew. The ship's communications officer is an Andorian named Ensign Sato, who is a descendant of Hoshi Sato, the very first communications officer on a spaceship named Enterprise, who was played by Linda Park on the series of the same name. The only other crew member we see at the beginning of the story is a Vulcan ensign named Talir. The crew travels to their destination to find it inhabited by hundreds of beings known as the Crystalline Entity, a being first introduced in the Next Generation episode Datalore. Just as they try to contact them, they are all destroyed in one blast, and afterwards there is no sign of the attacker. Sisko believes that this is the threat that he was brought back to stop, and decides to travel to Kronos to ask for help from an old friend. This is where this comic, Star Trek number 2, begins, with Sisko traveling to the Klingon homeworld and being warmly received by Worf. This version of Worf looks very similar to the one we saw leaving DS9 with Martok to become an ambassador, and he and Sisko greet each other like brothers. But the person that Sisko is really there to speak with is the Emperor of the Klingon Empire, Kahless. This is not the fabled Kahless the Unforgettable, who is known as the greatest warrior to have ever lived, but rather a clone that was created in the Next Generation episode titled The Rightful Heir. Even though he is not the original Kahless, it seems that by this point, he has reasserted his place as the Emperor of the Klingon Empire and has even gained more support in some circles than the Klingon Chancellor Martok. It is because of this that Sisko meets with Worf first before addressing the Emperor, since it seems like this Kahless is not too fond of the Federation. Sisko is there to ask permission to travel to a planet named Sarkadash and speak with an alien species known as the Shapers. This is the first time this planet and species has been referenced in Star Trek as far as I know, and they are described as a peaceful yet powerful and highly intelligent species that values peace and quiet above all else. A long time ago, they were able to build weapons that defeated both the Gorn and the Herc, two aggressive alien species known to reside in Klingon space, and then went on to create a treaty with the Klingons so that they would not be bothered. While peaceful by nature, the Shapers' vast intelligence allowed them to create very powerful weaponry, and it is the threat of their engineering ability that keeps the peace between them and the Klingon Empire. It is also because of their ability to create weapons that Kahless is reluctant to allow anyone from the Federation contact with these beings, because a relationship between them could allow the Federation to become more powerful than the Klingon Empire. Sisko believes that the Shapers are the only beings that could have created the weapon that he witnessed destroy the crystalline entities, which is why he has come to Kronos to ask permission to travel through Klingon space to the Shapers' home planet and ask them for help. Ultimately, even though Worf attempts to help, Kahless declines Sisko's request to travel within Klingon space to Sarkadash. Of course, this will not stop Sisko on his mission, as he believes that he has been sent by the Prophets to save the universe.
We're on a mission from God.
Sisko, along with Worf and the rest of his new crew, travel by warp to Sarkadash to speak with the Shapers, knowing that the Klingon Empire will follow them. The crew quickly beam down to the planet, while Worf stays on the Theseus to handle the Klingon response once it arrives. The planet itself looks really funky and cool, and it kinda reminds me of something you might see on the original animated series. The Shapers are not happy that there are mortal beings on their planet and quickly decide to destroy the crew. It is interesting though that they are aware of Sisko's role as emissary and are also aware of the Bajoran Prophets without him even mentioning them. However, just as Sisko and company are about to be unshaped, as they say, Data is able to convince the Shapers that human life should be valued because humans created him. And since they are able to create new life, in a way, humanity has reached a higher point of evolution than the Shapers believe them to be. I really like this development in the story, with Data using his existence to save humanity, as it was kind of a reversal of the plot of the classic TNG episode, Measure of a Man. In that case, Data, along with Captain Picard, were forced to convince a court that even though Data was created by a man, he is still an individual and not just a thing, and now Data has used that same argument basically to save other humans. While this is happening on the planet, Worf is able to elude an attack by a squadron of Klingon birds of prey, and then trick the commander of the attack with some help from Tom Paris and Scotty. After bluffing their way out of being destroyed, the crew reconvene and discuss what they have learned from the Shapers. According to them, whatever destroyed the crystalline entities first came to the Shapers' homeworld and threatened them with annihilation if they did not build them an even more powerful weapon that could destroy entire civilizations. The only other clue the Shapers were able to provide is a blood-stained Klingon dagger that the crew will now analyze. Feeling the urge to return to the stars and complete this mission, Worf asks Captain Sisko to be reinstated into Starfleet immediately. Given that Sisko conveniently does not currently have a security officer as part of his crew, I'm guessing that is the role that Worf will serve on the ship. This also explains why Worf was back in a Starfleet uniform during the events of the film Nemesis after he had left Deep Space Nine, which closes a loophole in the story that most people thought would never be explained. This also gives more legitimacy to the story told in these comics and its connection to the canon Star Trek universe. As I explained in my prior video about the first issue of this comic book series, these stories are meant to be canon to the main storyline, and now with the return of Worf to Starfleet, we have some very strong glue holding this story to the rest of Star Trek canon. So far, I'm really enjoying reading these books, and I am very much looking forward to next month's issue, especially after this ominous teaser that seems to suggest a very scary version of Q will pop up in the next installment. Well, that is all I have this time, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?